Hello and welcome to today's graphic design tip of the day. For today's tip, we're going to be going into Adobe Illustrator or any free vector drawing program to go over the process of how you would set up a landscape, but this time no details. It should all be one solid color for each of the items that you're adding in, unless you're adding a gradient value to it. The challenge is to create depth in your space by only using that single color or that value, thinking about your subject or your foreground, your middle ground, and your background to really create that spatial relationship. You can see some examples just by typing in vector landscape on Google. Another great option is to look at vecteasy.com and just typing in landscape. Although not all of them fit that exact criteria, you can see a lot of them are that depth of space created with only gradients and solid fill colors. What I would recommend doing for finding your actual images is go to a free image site like unsplash.com and find your images that you want to use and arrange them in your space where you want to put them on all separate layers. So coming into Adobe Illustrator here, you can see that I already on one layer added this image of the mountains that I'm going to be adding in for my background. I'm going to lock that, and then on a layer above that, I use the new layer button to add in a brand new layer. I dragged in another picture that I'm going to be adding here for my foreground. Again, I'm going to lock this image layer so that I can always delete this without affecting my drawing, and I don't end up moving that around as I'm designing. I also found an inspiration for the colors I'm going to use in my page. Adobe Colors, another great option for this. Or if there's one color that you definitely want to use, you can always use your eyedropper. Grab the color, and as you move further back in your space, you can get lighter with your values or darker with your values, whichever way you want to go with that to create that depth of space with a monochromatic, meaning one color and its shades and tints for your color palette. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and make a new layer above everything that I'm going to start drawing on, and just temporarily, since I'm starting with my background first, I'm going to hide that layer of the elk that I have here in the front. So using the little visibility icon, I'm going to turn that off. And start with your furthest things in the background and work your way forward. So what I would do first is that background, the sky of what's going to be behind everything here. So when I draw my shape, I'm going to switch it to stroke instead of fill and grab that exact color from the sky and copy it so I have it. So Control C. And I'm going to turn that into a gradient. Actually, I'm going to go with that exact color that's in the sky on this one. So using my gradient, I'm going to move that into more of a horizontal alignment or vertical line. And I'm going to grab for that white part at the top, my colors here, use my eyedropper and grab that color of yellow that's all the way at the top of my example. And then for the black at the bottom here, I'm again going to use my eyedropper and grab kind of that green tone that was in the bottom of this example. I really like the colors in this one, so I'll go with that. But now I can't see what I'm drawing, so I want to lock this layer and hide that layer so I can draw on top of it. So make a new layer above that, brand new fresh layer. And then the next thing that's furthest back is going to be that first mountain range. So using my pen tool or your pencil tool, if you feel comfortable freehand drawing that, you can start going through. If you need to, Control+ to zoom into that space to see what you're doing. Okay, and again, I can use my eyedropper tool to grab the color that I want those to be. Lock that layer. Hide that layer and make another layer above it, and I'll do a second layer of those mountains in the background just because there's some that are a little bit closer to really start to create that depth of space in this image. Lock it, hide it, make a new layer again, and this time I'm going to work with the stuff that's furthest closest to me here, so those major mountains up in the front. Okay, and if I bring back all of those, you can see that I really started to create that depth in this space. It'd be nice to have something like a tree or something as my subject, and I did find that picture that I'm going to use here of an elk that's similar. So I'm going to drag that one all the way to the top so I can see what I'm doing to start working on that. And again, make a new layer on top of it. This one I am going to zoom in just because it's a bit more detailed. Using my pen tool, then I can draw the outline of that. Remember, clicking and dragging anytime that you're creating a curve. Anytime you have a straight line, then we'll add in just sharp edges. And I'm going to turn this fill off so that I can see what I'm doing, so I'm going to put it on stroke instead. Okay, now that I have that entire image traced out, I filled it just with a solid value, and I can now hide that image that I used to trace it from. You can always go back and adjust any of your anchor points if you need to with the white arrow key or direct selection tool. If you need to bump it around, I recommend using the arrow keys on your keyboard just to have a little bit more precise of a movement. Or if you really need to smooth your path, you can always go to Object, down to Path, and over to Simplify. And then you can pull that over to the left as much as you need to smooth out that reference. And now I do want something that he's standing on for my final piece of land here. So again, using my pen tool. I'll just draw on the base. Okay, and since I have everything in here that I want, the last thing I want to do, especially since I have things hanging off the edge, if you do as well, make sure that you unlock all of your layers. I'm going to delete the ones that I don't need, those reference image layers now, since I have no use for them in this design. Unlock everything else, and if I make on my topmost layer a rectangle that is the size of my artboard here, grab everything, so drag over the top of it or go to select all, and right click and go to make clipping mask. It'll cut everything, put it all onto one layer so that it's all within that design space, and I can save it. It's ready to go to do something else with. I hope you enjoyed today's graphic design tip of the day.